Welcome, everybody, to Fitfoot U. This is Dr. Ben Pearl, and I'm here with former Capitals trainer Greg Smith. And Greg did his training. He's one of the unique athletic trainers that got a master's program at California University of Pennsylvania, and has done numerous athletic training gigs including with the Washington Redskins, and now has a new exciting career, and I'm not going to give a spoiler alert. I'm going to have him tell us about it. Welcome, Greg. And first, exciting. Tell me about this new league that you're getting involved with. You've got all that hockey experience.
First, thanks for having me on, Dr. Pearl. I really appreciate it. Yes, I took a new job as a medical director for a new professional hockey league called Three Ice. We took the best of hockey, which is a 3-on-3 overtime format, changed it into a game format. It's high speed, high stakes game. We're playing in 9 cities this summer, and it's actually really fun to watch. We're picked up on CBS Sports, and for you guys overseas, we're on the CBS Sports Network and TSN. So you guys can pick us up on that channel as well. But it's kind of fun if you love hockey and you're dying for it over the summer. We're a good option for you.
When did it get conceived, this 3v3, or was it always a training exercise in your camps and so forth?
So they came up with the concept about 3 years ago, and of course with COVID, things got kind of derailed. We were supposed to launch last year. But with COVID, they pushed it back another season just because of travel, because we are traveling to 9 different cities, and we're actually playing in London, Ontario this week. So I got to go across the Canadian border to play. So that was going to be challenging with COVID. So it's been around. It's fast paced. The games are about 16 minutes long. So it's really end-to-end hockey. There's only seven skaters on the team, 1 goalie and 6 skaters. So it's pretty fast-paced.
Do you expect to have less injuries because there's not going? Number one, the games aren't as long. Number two, I'm thinking with 3v3, even though you can have checking, right? There's more area for the skater to avoid getting mangled in the boards, etc. But then you said it's a faster game. So what's your projection on injuries in this 3v3 versus traditional hockey?
So the pace of the play is so fast right now. Our biggest challenge is recovery. The guys play basically, it's a tournament format. So every time you win, you advance to the next round. So you could possibly play 3 games in a weekend, back to back, 3 games. So it's to win the championship. There's a winner every week. And then with that, they're able to, there's prize money involved in it. So the guys compete pretty high, but you're totally right. Without the checking, without the hitting, the game is so fast and it switches over from a contact really sport to an overuse, repetitive motion sport.
Right. What is the age group? Is this younger, older, or the same as traditional hockey league players?
So they're all professional players, but the range is kind of skewed. Some of these guys are really young guys that either maybe too small for the NHL or just didn't get their break in the NHL playing overseas. So they're younger players. Maybe there's a couple undrafted kids out there that are playing with us. That are looking for an opportunity to play with the pro league. And then we have a lot of veterans who've played in the NHL. Maybe their career is winding down, but they still got skill and talent. And they like this format because it's less hitting and it gives them a chance to actually show skill versus brute force, I guess.
Now, you brought up a great point about recovery, and I know that that's something that you had to manage with your players week in and week out when you were with the Washington Capitals. And of course, that's high level elite competitive play and a lot of physical contact. What were some of the things that the average Joe hockey player or Joe runner, if we want to translate it to just other sports, might not appreciate that you got to see because of having so many injuries occur regarding recovery?
Yeah. So let's digress a little bit and talk about this. Sports science has come a long way over the last 10, 15 years. For what we know now versus the sports science recovery, taking care of people and stuff like that has been crazy.
Yeah, I mean, with the combines and such, what are some of the big things that you think have come out of all the research and all these super sports med, fitness trainers that are bringing knowledge, as well as the exercise physiologists and all the research that now are being phased into professional programs? I mean, I know, of course, there's built-in schedules of the off cycles, and especially like in events like track and field, with distance running and so forth. But what were some of the things that you think that people could take away from this podcast?
I mean, the biggest and the easiest thing to really take away in sports science, it's really, I think it's a game changer and something that's easy to do, is we undervalued sleep for so many years that sleep is the easiest way for people to recover. And we're really building in a lot more rest for our guys, players. I mean, the NHL 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, instituted what's called a 9-hour rule, which means the players have to be in their hotel rooms for at least 9 hours before we can require them to do anything. And we built that in so the coaches, could start valuing rest. And it's really blossomed because most of the coaches now are grasping that concept and allowing people to rest and recover. And it's an easy way to do it. If you're sore, you're tired, get a little bit more rest. And that seems to help out really well. We've also done some really cool stuff on, we test all of our guys called micronutrient testing. And it's now kind of seeping into the average Joe world, or the recreational or kind of elite athlete that still is performing. Everybody can get this. There's a lot of clinics out especially in the US, that you can get some micronutrient testing, whether it's a Quest Diagnostics or any of these laboratories now still have it. But it's basically testing your blood to figure out what nutrients your body needs. And I think that's, kind of putting the right gasoline in the tank and making sure that you have all the ingredients to be able to perform.
I know for a while vitamin D was sort of the rage. Are there any other common ones that pop up frequently when you do those testing batteries?
Yeah, vitamin D and if you look at it, magnesium is the other. I call them the silent contributor. Magnesium, as you know, is really good for recovery. It's also really good for sleep. So it's a really cheap, easy supplement to be able to have some of your guys do to give the biggest bang for your buck.
I wanted to piggyback on your concept of recovery and sleep, because I think that is critical. I've noticed that, of course, even in terms of lower level, just weekend warrior stuff. And of course, everybody intuitively knows this, but I think it might set up some type of oxidative stress too, that you might be more likely to pull a muscle, because you're just not getting that, your body isn't getting refreshed. And there might be sort of this systemic thing, not only for max load performance, but just the tissues themselves, with all the things that we're finding out about sleep science.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a big vat, right? Everything contributes to something.
Yeah.
So that's why for us, we got to just kind of really, we're doing a better job on the sports medicine side to really try to identify globally what's going on. And there's so many contributing factors to that. We're really trying to figure out to check all the boxes. Before it used to be, okay, you're able to perform, but you're not performing at the highest level, right? You know what I mean? Like it was,
Yeah.
the check box is okay, you can play. Now it's like, okay, you can play, but you can perform at the optimal level. Because
Right.
unfortunately, if you're competing, you're going to go against people that are doing all the right things. So if you're not, that's going to put you behind the eight ball just before even, the gun goes off or the puck drops or, whatever sport you're playing.
The psychology of it is big too. I know that I've just read anecdotes about people having jitters, like at the Olympic Games, where unlike a hockey season where you got multiple times to repeat and over repeat, you got your one shot on that one day. So there's so much pressure that builds up. It's a whole different element in terms of that. And then sleep can get disturbed, and there's burnout with that. And I suppose there's burnout in hockey too. I want to switch gears for a minute and talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. I'm a podiatrist, and we had a pre-interview where we were talking about the role of the foot in balance in hockey, some of the science that's coming out with this so-called barefoot science. And you shared some really interesting things about that, not the least of which is that even though there's so much pivoting and turning in the hips, you still feel that there's a role for the small intrinsic muscles of the foot. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Sure. As especially being in the field that you're in, especially athletes tend to, develop gross motor movements and gross motor skills, which means is that their bigger muscles basically can accommodate most movements. And it really doesn't become, really apparent until you have an injury that you neglected the small muscles, because the big muscles have been doing all the work for so long and they're so well trained that once you get down to the intrinsic part of things, that you can find this deficit. And it's an overlooked thing. Unfortunately, we're, you're like, oh, well, that guy's able to do this movement, but he's able to do the movement because he's trained his body to use the bigger muscle groups to get that power to be able to do it. But then when you slow down the movement, a lot of times, especially elite athletes will have trouble doing the movement if you slow the movement down, because that's when you need the intrinsic muscles to fire. You can't just, kind of like jump over the weak spots, as I call them. It's you need that intrinsic muscle to be the bridge in between, movements, to be able to get you from one movement to the next, where those big muscle groups can't be able to do that.
I will share one anecdote that I know because I coached skiing for over 20 years. One of the things that cued the movement patterns with skiing, and you're going downhill, unlike on the ice where you're level, but still going at different angles, was that when you dorsiflex or pull the toes upward in the ski boot, that helps you maintain better contact within the front shin of your boot, because it sort of draws you.
I-581.
Yeah. And then the fascia is all connected, right? And then there's also this sort of engagement that occurs from a sensory standpoint to kind of feel where your foot is in the mogul and in the turn a little bit better. And you sort of do it at the apex of the turn in particular. You try to wave those toes upwards, and that really helps steer you through the turn. So that is something that, you think you're in a skate or a ski boot, that how important can it be? Because you're all boxed in, it's not like running. But obviously there are some things that make a difference with those intrinsic muscle exercises. Are there any drills that you did to highlight those small intrinsics? What were some of the things, or some of the things you do now to train those? Do you have any like favorite things that you do with your athletes?
Yeah, what? A lot of the things is I go back to, movement patterns that require, a really slow, balanced approach. And I found that those work the best.
Mm-hmm. Let's now move to an area that you have a specialty in. You were talking to me in our pre-interview about the role of the abdominal muscles. And I will
Yeah.
tell you, last night, I was thinking about our conversation, and I hadn't hit the gym in a while. And for some reason, I don't like to do abs in my house so much. It's like I almost have to go to the gym with the Basu balls and the different stuff to kind of get in that frame. Um, and I typically I'll do like, the obliques a little bit, or then I'll do the Russian twists with the, where you have the medicine ball. But explain a little bit about that. I mean, I know it's a huge central point, but you have a lot of nuanced stuff you were talking about with all the external rotary movements that are occurring in hockey. So sort of give me sort of the format of how that plays.